Okay, it's top of the hour here, and I have the first item, so I think we can start. Previous retrospective improvement tasks. So I was tasked with changing some of the release process that we had that caused problems last time around. I linked the issue in the documentation, so I wrote a report there about it. I think a couple of items are interesting to highlight. So first of all, we managed to deploy the first deployable RC on the 10th in production. The first RC or RC1 that was not deployed in production, we actually deployed on staging on the 8th. So code freeze was 7th and we deployed on the 8th. And I think that's a pretty great achievement. One other thing that kind of pops up is more frequent releases was actually added more work, obviously, but the deploys became very much boring. So we were sitting down and looking at the metrics, and that's pretty much it. After 2 hours, things were done. That is also a problem. Deploy is very time consuming, and they're probably one of the most expensive tasks we have because it always occupies 1 or 2 people. Pedro, I think you're unmuted. Thank you. Like I said, a release is also a huge amount of work. So we'll need to think about how we can improve this further on. But I think overall, we did a really great release. And I want to thank everyone in engineering for rallying around the QA tasks, where we just pinged people directly to review their task. And people did that. And also CE2E merges became very much easy to look after, because as soon as someone got mentioned, they would check it out or find someone else who would check it out. So a huge, huge thank you for everyone involved in this process. Let me know if you have any questions about this.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Marin said. I mean, big ups to him for organizing this, for structuring the improvements, for getting everybody involved. Thanks for everybody stepping in, and a reminder that the reason we're doing this is it's the most short-term way that we can make GitLab.com, more stable, more highly available, more ready for people's mission-critical workloads. It's good prep for this future world where we're going to be doing continuous delivery, and we've seen that improvement. We've measured that. We see our availability improving. I think in December we checked in with at least our issue monitor was 100%. Obviously, the monitoring is not complete, but we demonstrated incremental improvement to that. In January, it's been the same with the exception of the Azure Intel bug. We took some downtime for that, but we can kind of annotate that one away and say that things that were under our control, we've been doing much better. So I just want to say, in addition to what Marin is saying, that like this is working, and it's honestly working better than I think I had hoped, at least. And so it's really great to see, and we want to keep up our momentum here. So thanks to everybody, especially thanks to you, Marin.
I think Camille can speak up if there are no questions about it. Obviously, you can comment in the issue if you have questions.
Sure. So thank you, Mari. Actually, we've been pushing the right direction on helping in making CI/CD actually testable on staging, given our past problems. You can actually link on the first issue in this list to actually see what we managed to do. There are like 2 different paths that we wanted to follow. First is like ensuring that you can manually test CI/CD against staging. So basically you can create GitLab CI YAML, push your project to staging and see like all the features that you would normally see on GitLab. It is fully possible now. But the second one is actually making it possible to easily contribute to GitLab QA with enabling end-to-end testing of the CI/CD workflow, which actually also includes the runner in this workflow. What is actually the important part of what we did is, first, it's easy to contribute to that by just replicating what we did with just simple pipeline. But the second one is actually you can run the GitLab QA against staging. So this is like the first iteration where you can basically use GitLab QA to test CI on staging. I mean, I would definitely like to thank Tomasz, who was handling the infra part, and Grzegorz, who was handling the GitLab QA. Maybe anyone have any questions? Okay, what went well? What went well this month, Stan?
I wrote this before anyone had anything else, but this again echoing the things that Maren and Eric talked about. Remy for creating the CE to EE merge automation. It's really awesome to go to the channel and be able to see exactly where the merge is and who needs to do what, or even if you wanted to jump in to do the merge yourself, it's really easy now. So that's a huge win in my mind. And the second thing we've already talked about is I think this was the smoothest release ever. I didn't see any downtime from Sidekick or web workers or anything like that. And I give credit to Maren and Luke and Robert for that. So Tim, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just that it was really nice from the deployment teams to let us actually know and have really clear communication what we need to do, clear tasks. Especially Luke did a great job in our direction too. That everyone actually was pinged and needed to get in, and then already knew, okay, I have to do this, do this, do this. And it was really incredible to see that this was most of the time done in minutes or some hours. So thank you for the clear communication. And I will go on as I have also the next point, which what went wrong this month. And one of the points was that the web IDE was lost in no man's land with in 10.4, which meant that there was the decision during the release cycle to move it from CE to EEU. So a couple of merge requests were needed, and in the end, the one for deleting the switch was merged, but the one to reactivate it was not, due to the fact that we then needed to have license checks, etc., etc. So the feature was there, but it was not possible to activate it in 10.4, and it was then fixed with 10.4.1. Then the other thing was we had issues with service workers, which were only discovered only in production with our CDN setup, because there are problems with service workers going across domains. We're currently figuring them out. And also that there was a fix that was created that also created then a problem with the tests that were like transient and was not really obvious with the where it happened. So thanks to Mike for fixing that. But yeah, I'm coming to the point how to help on this later on what we can improve. Stan, you're next.
Sure. Yeah. What went wrong this month with LDAP? LDAP sign-ins broke for EE users. It was fixed in 10.4.1, but I'll talk more later about what we should do about that. Fabio, Camille.
So basically, we have seen two different types of the issues last month. Basically, this came from our internal CI/CD retro, which is linked in this document. The first one is actually we had some confusion related to how the vendoring process of GitLab CI/YAML looks like, because it was quite kind of confusing whether what is part of the stable branches in the end, because currently this is mostly manual process. What is important, it seems that we have some conclusion mentioned in the issue, how to resolve that. So thanks everyone who did participate in this discussion. Second one, we also have seen some issues with the feature testing. Basically, we had the problems with balance between developer Q&A and the feature assurance or feature testing from like the product perspective. And like what is kind of important that we've been iterating fast on the code, basically like always having the green unit tests, but like we missed, I believe, a few times or like twice or three times, basically this kind of like go check whatever this feature does work, which kind of ended up in having the first RCs not fully being stable with the features that we shipped that we later had to patch. We had a very long conversation on the CI/CD retro, but like the meta outcome of that is like that we'll ensure that we test these features before we merge them, but we also think about introducing feature assurance in this process. It's like we've been putting this item in the company-wide retro because I'm kind of wondering if this is something that other teams are having problem with, like having this kind of final manual test, whether it's something that is needed or is it like more smoothly. I am not hearing anything. So, Alessio.
Oh, yes. During 10.4 development, we realized that there is some unclear part in the process for security fix development. So it's not really only related to development itself, but also to the release process and in general, everything around the security fix releases. So we started discussing this. There's an issue there. Something has been already merged in the handbook. Something is still open to discussion, but yes, this has been a huge time sink during 10.4 development.
I can just add a bit to that, given that it's a release process. So security releases are in general very confusing. We have multiple sources of truth, and I'll be working with Kathy on streamlining this in this this part of the process, I guess. And we'll start off with the next release, where we are going to first observe all of the issues that we are encountering before we can make changes. The problem with the security release is it actually changes our process of development completely. So we go from open only to closed, and this is where problems start kicking up. And also we have too many teams involved, so synchronization is sometimes a problem. But we'll be working on that in parallel with other changes.
Okay,
Victor, next.
So Victor is the next.
Sure. So I might have to correct my point, but I did see two regressions. One was the modal from when you click the issue board, and then it pops up that modal, you can't close it right now, and it's been fixed. And then the other one is some drop-down work in the issues tab. Sorry, in the issues page when you create a new merge request. I believe, I don't know if Winnie's on the call, but I believe this was due to some of the work there. And I don't know if you could provide more context, but the two problems I see here is that these two user-facing things seem to be pretty obvious. I don't know, we could have done a better job, whether it's QA or feature assurance to catch them, because these are not hidden features, but features that I would presume a lot of people use all the time. And then the other point I wanted to make was with the modals, making the modals consistent and also the drop-downs consistent. So these are actually two separate causes, but on the same theme. So I'll correct the point after this. But these are big changes across the entire platform. And so making modals consistent across the board and drop-downs across the board consequently had a lot of changes. And I don't know what's a good way to make sure that we can ensure that doesn't break anything. But I just wanted to call that out there. Tim, I don't know if you wanted to voice what you're writing down.
Yeah, the whole modal thing is a huge ongoing task. So at the beginning, it was a task of make 4-5 modals more consistent, and then we discovered that there are over 120 or so in the whole GitLab. So Winnie started already on the modal, making them more consistent. And in that process, sometimes simply the jQuery implementation gets replaced by a Vue implementation, or we have even non-jQuery implementation. So we will pick this up and see how we can make there also better QA on that. If we are doing such big undertakings, which are necessary to get them actually on one hand the same design, but on the other hand also on the same code thing, so that we can make progress on those things. But this shouldn't happen, and we will have a closer look on those. Thanks for bringing that up. As I mentioned before, what I would suggest is that we have on staging also the same CDN settings as on production, so that we have actual full staging configuration, which is mirroring production, so that we can also find such things as those service worker, cross-domain programs, etc., a little bit easier and a little bit earlier during the QA tasks. Sten, you're next.
Yeah, along the same lines, there's no way for us to test LDAP on staging right now, and the problem I mentioned earlier was only affecting EE customers. So either we have to have LDAP on staging and GitLab.com, but I think it makes sense to just start with staging right now, and then at the same time on the development side to work on a QA task to exercise LDAP, and there's an issue related to that. So back to you, Tim.
Great playing ping pong with you today. One thing that I had in my notes from the beginning of the release cycle was that I got a lot of questions that were if the cutoff day was went on a Sunday, so it was not clear to some devs if it's now on the Sunday or if it's already on the Friday or will it happen on Monday. So I think simply having clearer communications beforehand so that everyone is simply aware, okay, this will be the total cutoff time, and don't even think about pushing something in afterwards perhaps makes sense, so that everyone is aware of it. And the other question is perhaps we think about a bank holiday rule, because everyone was then hustling after the Christmas holidays to get everything in, and then we even lost 2 more days due to that weekend thing. So perhaps we can also think about that one.
Yeah, Tim, I quickly suggest that the date is obviously it shouldn't be a weekend, but due to holidays, we should agree like on a given calendar, like in Google Calendar, and we pick one of them, like whatever locale, and then at GitLab we don't expect people to work on that date, but then that person can, if they're responsible for an issue, that they can communicate with their team members, group members, that they're not available on that day, so therefore somebody else should pick it up. But GitLab wide, we should have a day to agree that it's always that day. So it's always on the 22nd, or if it's a weekend, then it's the Monday, or if that Monday is a holiday per this consistent Google Calendar, then we follow. We don't even or link to a Wikipedia page with like holidays or something like that. And make sure we don't change the Wikipedia page.
Isn't this all like super complicated? It's the 7th. If it's the 7th a weekend, you don't have to work weekends. If it's not done by the 7th, it doesn't matter whether the 7th is on a weekend or not. Like, ideally we wouldn't be
delayed. Okay.
Yeah, so ideally we wouldn't be merging stuff like up to we shouldn't have like, if we have a bunch of people worried about when the exact deadline is because they're expecting right up to that deadline, there is probably a problem somewhere in the process. And I would rather fix that part than find that exact point where you can get something merged.
So then the practical one is, yeah, exactly. It should be then practically speaking, if it lands on a weekend, everybody should be done the Friday before. Like that's the practical consequence, which in the long run, it works out, right? So we don't have to worry about losing time and stuff.
I mean, like in the past, it also happened that we basically created a stable branch from the past commit, not from the master, like the commit that was still like within the 7th. So maybe this hard cutoff is like that. This is like the exact, hour when after that you actually are confident that we are just creating from the last commit before that hour that is like merged, and it's still like highly consistent, like always, because this is something that like happens every sometime that it's 7th, but like the 7th, after 7th. So like maybe looking at the time zone that it's like the 7th, like the longest 7th in this time zone.
I think we already say midnight PST, don't we? I'm sure we discussed this before, and we just said I think Sid said we you use the home office. Sid's based in San Francisco. We use PST. Midnight PST is the cutoff. If that's not documented, we should, because that's what I've been working under the assumption of.
Yep, I love that. Like 1 minute before midnight, or like before midnight Pacific time. And we're a San Francisco-based company because it increases our value by 2x. So not because I live here, but because it's just good to be a San Francisco company. And I love that. No one has to work on the weekend, not the people merging it in, but also not people creating the stable branch. So I love that suggestion, Camille. That's great. yeah, the 22nd is a fixed date, and we don't want to work on the weekends for that either. So we make sure we got our RCs in a row before it's that date. Same with this. If we start moving it, it will take time from everyone to figure out how it's moved. We don't want that to happen.
Okay, it's already documented in the release tools, I think. We'll be moving that to a more prominent location as well.
Yeah, I think this is a really straightforward action item. And Maren, if you can just capture it in the process they're already writing, this one's almost, can be done within 30 minutes. So I like this one.
Yep.
So Yob and I are typically co-benevolent dictators when it comes to choosing action items. He happens to be offsite at a customer meeting, so it's up to me today. But I think, based on what Maren and Camille were able to accomplish coming out of the last retrospective, I think we can do everything here. I think these are actually smaller and then somewhat even more achievable. So the third one is kind of all but done. We'll put that on Maren, but obviously Maren has a lot of other stuff going on, so we'll kind of rule him out for another action item coming out of retrospective. Tim, getting to your first one, CDN settings, is this something the front-end team can do, or is this something that would fall under the production team to set up?
Production team. I could only ping them. So.
Production team. Okay. And then Stan, same question for you on LDAP. Is this something that a backend team could do?
The staging was a production thing. The backend thing is the LDAP, the QA task.
The QA task. Okay. And would that be Grzegorz, or would it be a backend developer? Who would you nominate to write the GitLab QA test for this?
It could be anyone who knows LDAP right now. So it could be anyone from Grzegorz to Mike Azono, so it could be a variety of people.
Okay. Well, why don't we say we're doing both of these? We'll figure out who the champions are just based on what people who's in the best position to do it. I don't think for these are two relatively small action items compared to the ones we've done in the past. So we'll figure out the best person to do them. But I think we can safely say that we'll do both of these. Great. Anything else, Victor?
No.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.